So think about your Creator. God sent revelation because he wants us to see Jesus clearly every day as our Creator. Now let me just tell you, the whole Bible is built around this. When Paul shared the gospel in Acts 17, I'm not teaching Acts, but Paul shares the gospel on Mars Hill in Athens. One of you is named Athens. Which one of you? I met Athens. Bonnie and I get to teach there almost every year, and I love it. But when I'm teaching Paul's life and letters in Athens, I get to chapter 17, I take him to Mars Hill. And I tell him, did you know Paul, when he shared the gospel, outlines the whole Bible? He says in Acts 17, verse 24, you have a Creator. That's actually how he shared the gospel with pagans. He said, you guys have a Creator, whether you know it or not. And I'm going to introduce him because I know him. He's the one that was there at my birth, and he's carried me all the way through life, and he's going to carry me to my death, even if the Romans do execute me and cut my head off like they did. Paul said, my Creator, who designed me, is carrying me through life. Did you know the Creator is introduced in Genesis 1 and 2? And he wants us to know we're designed by him. And my origin is, how did I get here? If you're a Christian, you got here by God. If you're not a Christian, you still got here by God, but they don't know it. And that's why we share the gospel with them. He's introduced after Acts 17:24, he's introduced as the Savior Redeemer. Did you know that's what happens from Genesis 3 all the way through Revelation 5? It's all about the Savior. I mean, he's prefigured in the sacrifices of Israel. He's taught by the prophets. He's actually born in Bethlehem, and he suffered under Pontius Pilate, all this stuff and he died and was buried and rose. And what are they singing about when we get there at the end of this week in Revelation 5? Our Savior who redeemed us. He bought us. That's why I'm here. I'm bought at a price. Then Paul ends Acts 17's gospel presentation. He says, you need to meet your Creator. He came as your Savior, offers you redemption. And if you aren't responding to him, whether you like it or not, he's going to be your judge that's going to cast you in the lake of fire. That's introduced to us, by the way, in Revelation 6. That's next week, Lord willing. Our judge, we're answerable to him, and he's our destiny. Where am I going? By the way, every person on earth, whether in India, Africa, or Australia, or Europe, or here in America, they're thinking about, how did I get here? People think about origins. What do they hear at school? Well, you kind of arose from a primordial soup, okay? Why am I here? This is why there's so much teen suicide in our world. They're told that they're just, some collection of molecules, and they don't know why they're here. And unless you're famous enough to be on Instagram and have everything, on one of those crazy TikTok videos, you wonder why I'm here, and everyone's trying to be significant. Where am I going? And they look and they see that the world is getting filled with these old people. Do you know China has a problem? They have 200 million, what we would call retirees. 200 million! That's almost the population of America, of old people. And all the young people have to work to support the old people, and they don't like it. And there's people, they just rioted in Paris over the same thing. There's too many old people. And I'm going to be an old person. So here's the whole Bible. Genesis introduces the Creator. From Genesis to Revelation, he's the Redeemer. And Revelation ends with he's the judge. Now, for us that know the Creator, what is God's will for us? Did you know? 5 times it says, this is God's will. And then in context, there's actually another one that says, in everything give thanks, which is in context to that prior one. And what the will of God is, it's very simple. The will of God is we need to get saved. He's not willing that any should perish. And we should not be drunk with wine and have all these influences. He said, this is the will of God, that you be Spirit-filled. So you have to ask yourself, before you know whether you're supposed to be the NASCAR driver or the healthcare worker or the media director, before that you can really know if that's God's will. You have to get saved. That's the connection to your Creator. Then you have to get Spirit-filled, which, by the way, is a daily thing because we kind of leak. We have to get refilled all the time. Then you get sanctified. Paul said, this is the will of God, even your sanctification, 1 Thessalonians 4:3. What does that mean? Get useful to God. Allow his word to conform us to his will. That's how we get useful. Then we get submissive. Peter says, this is the will of God, that you submit to every authority over you. We live in a whole generation that Christians think their big thing is to not submit. This is an ungodly government. Who lived under the most ungodly government? The New Testament believers. They were in an occupied country where soldiers were forcing them to carry the backpacks and all that stuff. And Jesus said, don't just do what they tell you to do, do more. And what did Jesus say? Pay your taxes. Pay your taxes to Rome. Did you know the Roman emperor was a public homosexual? I mean, we haven't quite had that in America in our presidency yet, okay? A public. Did you know Nero? When Paul said be subject to the king, the emperor Nero, Nero had a normal wife, a woman, and he killed her. And then this is just history, he had his favorite slave castrated, and that slave named Florus became Nero's wife. How do you like that? That is about as debauched as you can get. And to him, Paul said, submit to every ordinance of him. Nobody nowadays would do that in the church because they think it's our duty to Christianize America and overthrow all evil. That is not really the mandate of the church. The mandate is not to Christianize society, but to lead individuals to Christ. And in America, we've wasted an awful lot of the strength of the church fighting political battles that we already have read will never be won. Our goal is to get saved, spirit-filled, sanctified, submissive to every ordinance of man for the Lord's sake, unless they tell us not to pray or to worship a false god. Anything that's clearly a sin, we don't do. But paying taxes is not a sin, and neither is submitting to rules of the government, no matter how onerous or hard they are. We're supposed to get willing to suffer. This is the will of God, that you suffer. That means we raise our hand for Christ, and we identify with him, even if it costs us something. And then this is how you keep going. 1 Thessalonians 5:18, in everything give thanks. We get satisfied that we are going to follow whatever God has designed and planned for us.